Hey, David, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello, David.
What's going on, guys? Good morning to you.
We're glad to have you on the show. Been listening to the work
Yes.
that you do for a while, and now you've written a fantastic book that we will dig into in just a moment. But you are quite well-versed in the area of real estate investing, and so we know a lot of people tuned in are looking to grow in their knowledge of this area. So before we start getting into all your great advice, can you just say hello to everybody that's tuned in and let them know what you are all about?
What's going on, His and Her Money podcast, folks? My name is David Greene. I am a former police officer and now current real estate nerd. So I saved a bunch of money working in restaurants, and I used that to buy rental properties when the market tanked in California. California got to be too expensive, and so I moved to other states. And I kind of put together a system of buying houses in states that were affordable as opposed to my own market, which wasn't. Wrote a book called Long Distance Real Estate Investing, did pretty good. And then I realized that I was saving up a ton of money to put as a down payment and then dumping even more into the rehab. And I was running out of money, and I was just spending my whole life working just to buy these rentals. So I tried to find a different way, and I found the BRRRR strategy, and I got really good at doing that, which is basically a process of buying a house, fixing it up, and then refinancing it. So you get your capital back and you can go buy more. I ended up kind of combining the long distance method and the BRRRR method to build a portfolio of about 35 cash flowing rentals across the country. I've got some shares in apartment buildings, and I've got some mortgage notes and shares in note funds. And now I host the BiggerPockets real estate podcast, where we teach other people how to find financial freedom through real estate. And I'm a huge proponent of managing your money wisely and empowering yourself for the future that you'd like.
So let's talk about that, because you started your journey into real estate investing early, when most of us, just talking about myself, I wasn't thinking about 5-10 years down the road. I was thinking about the weekend and the weekend only. But you had the forethought to jump into the game early. Why is real estate investing something that we all should be considering?
So real estate investing is the only thing I've found in life outside of a relationship with God that will give you back more than what you give it. Like, you cannot outgive real estate. The more you pour into it by gaining knowledge, by putting your money into it, by putting your time, by putting your passion, it's going to give you back way more than you could possibly put in. And when I look around me, I see people that pour a ton of their time, energy, passion, focus into a relationship or a hobby, or maybe their own ego, right? Or maybe like their body. They want to go to the gym and they want to look a certain kind of way. And you put a lot into it and you get something back, but it's usually not as much as you put into it, right? But real estate's different. I mean, every year you own it, it gets better than it was the year before. And every deal you buy, you also learn more. So the next deal is going to be even better. And you get into this accelerated momentum where now I put a little bit of time and a little bit of effort into deals that give me a big payout every single time. So that's probably why I fell in love with it, is I just realized, like, I cannot outgive it. So the more that I put into it, the better investment it'll be for me.
Now, this started because, and I know people, and in some situations this is the case, but a lot of people have the mindset that you need a ton of money, or you need to be at this place in life in order to invest in real estate. And your story began as a waiter. You got your first capital for your first deal from being a waiter. Can you take us way back there to how this thing got started?
Yeah, so I was a basketball player in high school, and I was captain of the team. I was super into it. It's kind of like the first thing that I really was tested as a man, where I had to do something that felt harder than what I believe was the capability to do. It really stretched me trying to be a part of that team and the responsibilities that the coach put on me. And then my career as a basketball player didn't pan out like I was hoping to. I had a really rough senior year. A lot of bad things happened, kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. So I took all of that dedication that I had been throwing into that and threw it into my job, because I had nowhere else to put it, which was being a waiter. And I got really good at waiting tables and learning how to make more money and how to be more efficient at that job. I really just threw myself into perfecting my craft, because that was kind of all I had, and I didn't have basketball anymore. And what happened is I ended up making a lot more money than other kids my age. I would stay late when everybody would go home, and I could double the amount of tables I could take, which would double my income. I could handle twice as many tables as the other person could, because I would move faster and think quicker. So I could make twice as much money. And when I combine those two things together, I'd be making 4 times as much money as the guy next to me. So if he made $50 that night, I was making $200 that night. And then if I worked 5 or 6 days a week instead of 3 days a week, well, I'm doubling the money he's making there too, right? And I just saw, like, man, if you just do really good in several things, you get this amplified result. And when I ended up graduating college, my school was paid for. I had no debt. My car was paid off. And I had 90 something thousand dollars in the bank saved up just from waiting tables. I would drive like pretty far to go to the nice restaurants. And I would drive pretty far to go to school without having to live on campus. So I saved a lot of money living at home. And then I got really lucky. When the market tanked, I had capital and I could jump in to buy it. But I would have been just like everybody else thinking, oh, I wish I could go buy a house. I wish I had some money, except for the fact that I knew I have something I want to do in life. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to need money and I'm going to need a place to live. I thought I was saving all the money to buy one house. I didn't know it would be 4 or 5 houses.
Wow. So you talked about in the beginning, I heard the 2 strategies, the BRRRR strategy and it was the
long distance.
There you go. So break those down so our audience can understand the difference between the 2 and why you chose one now over the other.
So long distance investing is the concept of it. My market doesn't make sense. I live in the Bay Area in California. So you cannot buy a house that will cash flow positively. Anything you buy is going to cost you more to own it than the rent it brings in, unless you put down a ridiculously high down payment, in which case that makes the ROI on your money really low. So it didn't make sense to invest here, but I saw how powerful real estate investing was and I didn't want to quit. So what I figured was, let's go to where it makes sense rather than just complain that it's not coming to me. I spent a year sitting around feeling sorry for myself because prices were too high before I realized that there's nothing stopping me from going to where it does make sense. When I started doing that, I got a little shot of confidence. Like, oh, this isn't that hard. I needed a painter in California. I need a painter in Arizona. I can find a painter. What would I do if I was in California? I would ask my real estate agent. Well, I'll ask my Arizona real estate agent. This guy doesn't know any painters. Well, then maybe I need a different agent, right? It just kind of put itself together that way. The BRRRR strategy has to do with so the long distance allows opportunity where there wasn't any. If you can go to where the fish are biting, you can catch fish rather than just fishing in that same fishing hole where there isn't any. The BRRRR strategy allows you to be very efficient with the capital that you have. You can spend the same dollar over and over and over and keep buying a house. So a typical BRRRR deal would look like, and that's the most recent book I wrote, I buy a house that's just in terrible shape. It's completely trash, and I pay $60,000. I spent $30,000 to fix it up. So I've spent $90,000 total on this house that's now worth about $120,000. The bank's going to let me borrow 75% of what it's worth. So 75% of 120 is 90,000, which is the same amount of money that I put into that deal. So I spent 90, I get back 90, but I have a house with $30,000 of equity that cash flows a couple $100 a month. I also learned everything I just learned from that rehab about that area, about how I got the deal, about what worked and what didn't. So the next deal theoretically should be even better. And I went from buying about 2 houses a year because I would just dump, $60,000 into every single house, to 2 houses a month because I could spend that money, I could get it back, and I could send it out again. So the velocity of my money was increasing tremendously because my money was now working hard for me. Every time it went out there and got a deal and came back to me, I added $30,000 to my net worth. And if I could do that twice a month, I was adding $60,000 of money to my net worth, but it was with the same capital. I didn't have to go save capital to go invest it, right? I could just kind of recycle it back and forth. So the capital I had was working for me, earning me $60,000 a month plus a couple hundred in cash flow, while I'm still working at my job, building up more capital. So now I'm just one guy, but it's like I'm in 2 different places, if that makes sense, right? So now I'm getting twice as much results, which was very similar to what was happening in the restaurant, where I learned if I do these things and I stack them up, I can make 5 times as much as someone else in the exact same amount of time as what they're spending.
So now BRRRR is an acronym. Can you break down what each letter stands for?
Absolutely. And that's really all that it is. It's the order in which you would buy rental property. So the B is buy, and then rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So you buy a house, you rehab it, you rent it out to someone, you go to a bank and you refinance it, and then you repeat that on the next house. And the book is basically broken into those 5 parts. And my premise is, if you master BRRRR, if you master each of those 5 things, you will have mastered real estate investing. If you know how to buy really good deals, that's the most important part of real estate investing there is. If you can rehab houses, that makes deals available to you that somebody else would be too scared to take on. So there's opportunity there. If you can rent your property out, you'll have cash flow and you'll be making money every month and eventually hit financial freedom. If you can refinance it, you can get that capital back and you can keep spending it like I was saying earlier. And then the repeat is about systems. How do you build systems so you're not doing a ton of work? So this thing becomes an easily repeatable, simplified process that almost runs on its own so that you can scale it big. And those are 5 skills that every real estate investor needs. And if you can do those things, you can be what I call a black belt investor and build some serious wealth.
It's so good. I must say that I love the His and Her Money Show, you all, because this is packed of great information. So let's say you're talking to somebody that maybe they have fear, maybe they don't know where to begin, where to start. What would you tell that beginner investor to do first? Would it be to save, a little bit of money? What would you tell them the first steps that they should take?
First step you should take doesn't even have anything to do with real estate investing. It has to do with the standard that you have for yourself. Right? So my standard when I worked in that restaurant was that I know that I could be a really good basketball player. I knew that I could help my team win games, whether I was the one shooting the ball or I was the one setting the screen. I took that same mentality into the restaurant. Oh, all my tables are good. Let me go fill up everybody else's waters. Let me bring their tables bread. Let me help them bust their tables, right? So everybody around me started to really like me, and they spoke well of me, which helped me get promotions with my boss where I was getting bigger tables and more tables and better hours and stuff like that. What I found is that people who are successful in life, actually, let me back that up. People that are unsuccessful in life tend to blame something outside themselves. It's a corrupt system, or other people are against them, or it's just there's no way you can get ahead. There's always a reason why.
Excuses.
Yes, there's tons of them, right? Like we don't have to look very hard to find excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Successful people may do that to a degree, but the biggest difference is that they just have a higher standard of themselves, right? So there's people that went to the same restaurant as me and saw me get an 8 top when they got 2 people on their table and thought, oh, it must be nice to be David, right? But they weren't going around filling everybody's waters up. They weren't trying to beat me out of that spot. They just wanted it to be handed to them. So in general, I think the road to financial freedom, which is a very worthy goal, starts with raising the standard that you put on yourself. When you show up at work every day, are you coming to win that game? Are you giving everything you have like it's game 7 of the finals and you're going to leave it on the floor? Or are you showing up and waiting for someone to just hand something to you for good things to come your way, right? That's where I would say it starts, right? And if you're already getting the most out of yourself that you possibly can, you're going to be saving money. You're going to find you earn a lot more money than what you were earning, because most bosses, like now I'm a boss, I run a real estate team. I am constantly frustrated with employees that do not care as much as I do, that are not trying nearly as hard as me, but that want all my opportunity and they want what comes my way, right? I'm telling you, if you work at any kind of small business, they're looking for people to step up, take initiative, and crush it. And you will find rewards if you're doing that and you're asking for them, right? So if that's what's happening, you're going to be naturally saving money because you expect more out of yourself. Like you will save money. You're going to be making more money, so you'll have more to save because you're outperforming all your competition. Then naturally, you're going to have a desire, what do I do with this money? That's where investing comes in, right? The first thing that you should do when you hit that point is start analyzing mock deals. So pull up a house on Zillow and say, if I bought this house, would it cash flow or not? And learn how to analyze a property. Now, BiggerPockets has calculators that do it. I've got articles on greenincome.com, a blog I run that shows how simple it is to just look at a property. Here's your 5 expenses. Here's your rent. Is your rent more than those 5 expenses? If so, it'll cash flow, right? Then learn how to determine what your down payment would be to buy that property and what your ROI on that money would be. Then you'll start to recognize good deals versus not good deals. Then take it the next step and start to say, how could I make this house worth more? Could I add a bedroom? Could I add a bathroom? Ooh, it has a sunroom. How much would it cost to turn that into something? Reach out to contractors and talk to them. Talk to other investors, right? It's pretending like you're buying that house and running through the steps that you would take before you actually have any skin in the game. And if you do that enough times, you'll start to feel confidence. And that's what most people are lacking, right? Most people don't move forward until they feel confidence. And that's very similar to saying, I'll go to the gym when I feel strong. You got to go through it to build the confidence, right? But that doesn't mean you should be risking your money. You find a way to do it with very low stakes to train, to go through the motions, right? Like the same reason we practice a sport or we practice anything that we want to do well. UFC fighters are not going full contact all day, every single day. They'd be knocked out all the time, right? They're running through drills, they're practicing on each other, and then on fight night, they're actually going at it with everything they have. But why would you wait till fight night before you start worrying about practicing? That's what people should be doing. And maybe on that analogy, for the fighters that are out there that they know they have a fight in 6 months, they're giving it their best in training every day. They know this is a goal I have. I want to win, and they're working hard at it. We may not be UFC fighters. We may not be professional athletes, but nothing stops us from acting like that when we're at our job every day, or when we're in school, or when we're trying to raise our kids, or whatever it is. There's nothing that says you can't put the same effort as an Olympic athlete into whatever it is that you do. Right. And I've just found that most people in life don't do it. So for those that do, man, the world's your oyster. You can have anything you want if you take that mentality and go after things.
That's good. We'll make sure we have the links that he mentioned as well to the calculators in the show notes.
Now, earlier you mentioned you gave a scenario. You was like, you'll buy a house for $60,000 that's trash, right? That needs this work. Now, what is something that would be worthy of, us putting our money in, and what are some types of rehab work that we should run the other way from?
So you always look for the low-hanging fruit you want to handle first, right? So if you can buy a house that needs cosmetic work, that's usually the best kind of work. If you have to put a brand new roof on a house, that's nice, but you're not going to get the same value out of it that you put into it. If it costs you $12,000 to put on a roof, an appraiser's not going to give you $12,000 more of value. If you have to do electrical or plumbing work as a beginner, you should go the other way. You're not going to get it. If it has brand new plumbing, no buyers are going to come in and say, oh God, I'll pay $30,000 more. It's got new plumbing. No one's ever thought that, right? Buyers are looking at the backsplash and how the kitchen ties together and if it's open, right? So your ideal house needs work in those areas. The walls need to be opened up. The landscaping's in really bad shape. It needs paint and flooring. You could go in there and paint the cabinets and put on some hardware. You could update the shower, like the bathrooms could be updated, but it doesn't have a lot of dry rot. It doesn't, like on the outside, like that fungus that eats away wood. It's not going to have electrical problems at all. It's not going to have any serious plumbing issues. It's not going to have foundation issues. It's not going to have the roof. Those are probably your top 5 killers. Now, sometimes you come across a screaming deal, like you could buy it for 40 and it'll be worth 120. Because it has so many of those problems, that's what they got to sell it for. And in that case, it's fine. If you got to fix up the plumbing, that's cool. But in general, you're trying to avoid those big ones, especially when you're new. You're just trying to buy a really ugly house. Now, we haven't mentioned this, but like I help a lot of people who want to get started owning real estate but don't have a ton of money by what we call house hacking. And that's where you go and you buy a house to live in for yourself, putting a very low down payment. Right now you can get conventional loans for 1% down, 3% or 5% down. So not a ton of money. You just buy the ugliest, nastiest house that you could find. And then you start saving up money and putting it into your home. You put in new flooring, you put in new paint, you open it up. In fact, you're actually going to get a tax incentive when you buy a house. And that's one of the things I tell people is take that $5,000 at the end of the year that you get back. And that's your flooring for the house. Next year, that's your paint and your landscaping. Next year, that's your kitchen. Next year, it's your bathroom. Next year, it's the exterior paint. And the next thing you know, your house paid to rehab itself over 5 years. You created a ton of equity, and it didn't take very much money to get into it, right? So that's one of the ways that people can this is scary. I don't know if I want to do this, but you need to have a place to live anyways. An easy way to get started, kind of learn the fundamentals and get your career going.
Imagine a life where your money isn't strangled by mortgage payments. Imagine what you could do when you don't have to send them money that you work so hard for. Come get simple, powerful, and real solutions to eliminating monthly mortgage payments forever. America's #1 money couple presents Crush My Mortgage. In this exclusive course, you will be equipped with strategies to help you move faster toward the promised land of owning your house free and clear. Learn strategies to help you in the areas of payment acceleration, extra income generation, and wealth creation, all to help you crush your mortgage. Visit crushmymortgage.com and get started today. Join us on the path to power, freedom, and legacy. That's crushmymortgage.com.
I scream this from the rooftops. If you're in the beginning, you know what I mean, of life, and you're just started, or you're just married, and your situation is available to where you can go live in a house or live in a multi-unit, and you can put down the 3%, please do it. I mean, I scream this out. That's one regret that I have, because I had a little bit of knowledge of that, but not enough to convince me way back when I was single and in the military. There was opportunity for me to do that, but I was just too green to do it. And that's the one regret that I have about this journey. But if you're in that position, like we you know, when we talk about it, you know, we got 3 little kids, and you know, it doesn't necessarily make sense for our scenario, but there are so many people whose scenario this makes. If you're in an apartment right now and you're thinking about being a first-time homeowner, what we love to tell people is look at it as a business transaction. Don't get so caught up on watching HGTV that you think your first house has to be this, that, and another. Your first house could be a business transaction where you live in it for a year, then move out and go get the house. So now you got 2 assets working positively.
Or what if you did that every year for
True.
20 years?
True.
Right? I've never met a person that bought a house and 30 years later was like, I wish I wouldn't have bought that.
True.
You know, and at the time it always feels scary. That's the other thing. But I'm saying, like, it is scary. You're giving real estate your faith, your trust, your work. You're giving in a lot, but it's going to give you back way, way more.
Yeah. Now, what about some of those math nerds or people that are doing their math, right? They're like, okay.
Because you have a calculator in your brain.
Well, I'm just saying the scenario that you gave where you put 60 in, you fix it up for 30, and then you were able to turn around and get 75% from the value, which I think the value is like at 120. Then you turn around, you take that 90,000, you put it into the next house.
Yep.
And you do it, you keep repeating, you keep repeating. Are you leveraging yourself on all of these homes? Are you having multiple liens basically on these homes? How is that process?
I'm glad you asked that question. So the short answer is yes. You've had a mortgage or a lien on every single property that you take out on. Now, the common objection to this is that you don't want to be what they say over leveraged. You don't want to owe too much money on these houses, right? And that's a fear that, in my opinion, came from 2005 through 2009 or 8, when housing prices were like skyrocketing and people were borrowing more than they could afford, right? I don't worry at all about owing more money on a house. I don't care what I owe. I care what the payment is. So for most of these houses, when you're taking a payment out on something that, like, you're borrowing 90 grand, your payment's like $600 or $700 a month, right? And your rent that's coming in is like $1,000 or $1,100 a month. So right off the bat, your cash flow will protect you from losing the property. And that's what cash flow is really meant for. It's a defensive metric that keeps you from losing something, right? I don't care if my house that was worth 120 and I own 90 on it drops to being worth 60. I don't care if there's a crash. I'm actually hoping there is, because I could buy more of those houses at 60,000. What I owe on the house does not matter unless I go to sell it. So if it drops to being worth 60 grand and I owe 90 on it, I don't really care. I'm not planning on selling it. It's still going to rent out. I'm still going to have money coming in, right? I have this analogy. It's like when you're climbing a mountain and then you slip and fall, but you got that belay that's into the rock that catches you. That's what cash flow is like. Okay, so the whole market crashed and my house went from 120 down to 60, but my cash flow caught me, so I couldn't get hurt. I just wait for it to climb right back up again, and then I'm on my way moving myself up the mountain. So the 2 things that I believe keep somebody from getting in trouble with real estate is buying for cash flow and having reserves. Because you don't know, maybe the water heater goes out, or your tenant lets the bathtub overflow and you get water leaks everywhere. Stuff's going to happen. And if you have money set aside, you can weather any kind of temporary, like, oh crap moment that you may have. But over the long run, you're going to get so much wealth created from the property going up in value and the loan getting paid down that I just make sure I have cash reserves and cash flow. And that gives me the confidence to be more aggressive when I'm pursuing real estate, because we're always going to have fear. There's never going to come a time where you feel strong before you go to the gym, right? The only time that happens is if you're taking a drug like cocaine or methamphetamine or something, right? That's where you can cheat the system and feel strong, but you're going to pay a price for that later, so we don't recommend it, right? Don't go to any human being that makes you feel confident in what you're doing, like just gets your emotions roused up. Those are usually the gurus that are trying to rip you off. They're trying to get you to give them $80,000 so that you don't feel afraid. It's okay to feel fear. Right? You conquer fear by putting money aside, by conquering your own, like disciplining yourself so that you're living within your means and you're doing well. And you know, if I slip, if I fall, if I have a hiccup, I've got money set aside to catch me. I will learn from that and I will keep going.
So what would you recommend? I'm assuming by you doing this, this process, you have to have an amazing team. I'm sure you have to probably have a strong accountant, right? I'm assuming that possibly you have a business or something set up where these houses or something. I don't know how that all works, but then you have to also have a great realtor, right? So talk about how important it is to have the right team and staff around you, because now you're not really considered a one-man show. You have to have others to help you.
Yeah. So in the long distance real estate investing book, I talk ad nauseum about this, and we call them the core 4. So the 4 people that I need, and I can do a deal anywhere, is an agent, a lender, a property manager, and a contractor. If you have those 4 people, you could do a deal anywhere. And what you really are doing is you're spending a ton of time looking for one rock star, usually the agent, because then they can help you find the other pieces. They've got recommendations. They have other clients that use these people. They've worked with them before. And once you get those people together, you're really not doing very much work at all. Your agent's saying, hey, I found a deal. Do you want to buy it? Your property manager's saying, well, here's how much it would rent for, and here's what I think we need to do to fix it up. Your contractor's telling you, here's what it would cost to fix it up. And your lender is telling you, here's what the payment would be if you were to buy that house. That's all the ingredients that you need to make real estate soup. Someone else is bringing it to you. And the cool thing is, the agent, the lender, the property manager, they do not get paid unless you buy that house. So they're helping you to do that because that's how they make their money. And what I do differently than other people is I get each of them looking at the other person's work to make sure that they're all on the same page. So the contractor does his job and he says, hey, I'm ready for another $10,000, wire it to me. I don't just send him money. I send the property manager to look at the house and say, did he do all the stuff he said he's going to do? When the job's done, I have the property manager go by there and say, oh, looks like they didn't make that sink work, or we need to get blinds on the windows, because that's his problem. If we get tenants in there, they're going to be complaining to him. So he'd rather go take care of it while the contractor's still on the site, right? If the property manager tells me, well, I think that it's going to rent for $1,200, I have my agent look at rental comps and say, does that match up to you? Does that look accurate, right? I don't just take him at face value. My agent says, I think it'll be worth $120 when it's fixed up. Well, I get my property manager and my contractor, who both look at real estate deals all the time, and I say, does that look right to you? And oftentimes they're like, actually, it doesn't. The houses 2 blocks over are selling for $120, but this neighborhood, they're selling for $80, right? So you never just take someone at face value. You always verify what they're saying. We have this saying, trust but verify, right? And if you get the right team together, you shouldn't be doing much of the work. You're kind of leveraging those people to help do all the due diligence for you.
Wow. So now, a friend of mine, we were talking not too long ago about BiggerPockets, the show, and because we're both fans of it. One thing that can get people caught up, this is what we were talking about, was you all cover like every possible angle of real estate possible, and they all look good. Like every strategy looks like a winner, and you can get stuck with analysis paralysis, right? So there's tons of strategies out there. Why is BRRRR the strategy that we should be looking more closely at, especially if you are a beginner investor and you want to get into real estate, you're just not sure which one you should try?
Couple of reasons. One reason I love BRRRR for beginners is that everybody's is interested in like getting started and getting something. And that is important, right? But the problem is, let's say you have $150,000 you've saved really hard, and you go put $50,000 down on a deal and you do okay. And then you go put $50,000 on the next one, you do a little better. And then you put $50,000 on the third one and you're like, boom, this agent's bringing me great deals. I finally got the right contractor. I am ready to roll. And now you got no money. That happens all the time, right? So you blow all your capital and now you can't keep buying houses. If you took that 150 and you spent the whole 150, but then got the whole 150 back, you're never going to run out of money. So you're going to keep getting like the experience and the exposure to get good at anything, because no one's good at something that they don't do very often. So that's one reason. The next is that BRRRR forces you to buy good deals. Because if your target, you don't always hit your target, but if your target is to get back 100% of the money that you put in a deal, you probably have to be buying it for 75 cents on the dollar. So all those deals that looked good to you stop looking good if you can't buy them at 75 cents on the dollar. Your brain trying to tell you, oh, but this to justify the decision, it loses its power when you're looking at these numbers and they just don't make sense. I'm not going to get all my capital back, so I'm not going to do that deal. I need to get it at a better price. It forces you to get a better deal. And then the third reason that I like BRRRR is when you mess up, and you're going to mess up, your rehab is going to go over budget. The houses, you thought it was going to be worth 120 and it was only worth 105. That's going to happen all the time, right? If that happens, like I'll run some numbers right now. Let's say that you thought a house was going to be worth 120 and you were going to borrow 75% of that, but it's only worth 105. That means the bank's going to give you back $78,750, which is less than the 90 you thought you were going to get, right? But that means you're only leaving about $11,000 in that deal, right? Instead of what would have been a 25% down payment plus your rehab budget. If that place cash flows $200 a month, that's $2,400 a year. And if you divide that by about the $11,000 that you left in it, your ROI is almost 22%. So on a deal that you super screwed up on, your consolation prize is a 22% return on that money that you left in there, right? That's a really big margin for error. That's why I really love it. It's like training wheels. I can only fall so hard. I really, really like it. Whereas if you mess up on that same deal where you're sinking a ton of money into it, you're getting a really low ROI on your money, and you have a big opportunity cost because you can't go use that money to buy something better.
Love it. What would you say for those that may be looking for property? Are you a big fan of multi-units or single-family homes? What's your approach?
It depends on the market you live in. So if your listeners are in the Bay Area, they can reach out to me. We're probably not going to find very much multi. There's very little multi in the Bay Area. So what we do is we look for single family homes that have been modified to work as a multi. So someone put a wall in the middle of their house and they put a kitchenette in. So they made it into a duplex, or there's a ADU in the back or something like that where they can rent that out or live in that and rent out the main house. Other areas, like areas on the East Coast, man, they got multifamily property everywhere, or every house there has a basement that can be bought and finished. And a lot of the time when you're finishing a basement, it's got like plumbing and electrical underneath the house above, and it's super easy to tap into it for the basement. So if that's the kind of area that you live in, that's what you should look for. How do I buy a house, put $10,000 into finishing out the basement, live in that, rent out the unit upstairs, live for $100 or $200 a month, save a bunch of money, and next year do the same thing? So the advice that I would give is like, you kind of got to, it depends where you live and what opportunity you have, but those principles are the same everywhere. Buy something that you can either rent out for money or that you can chunk into several pieces and rent out those pieces.
Love it. So Ty and I are in research mode where we dabbled in investment real estate right when the market crashed, got burned bad enough to never return, but now we're ready to return, right? So we're 100% debt free. We don't owe anybody anything, including our house. We don't have a mortgage anymore. And so the debate, the back and forth, because on one hand, we both understand the mathematics behind a BRRRR strategy or any other strategy where there's a mortgage. But the emotional, impact of not owing anybody anything is also cool too. You know what I mean? So it's like a back and forth discussion between the two of us. Do we take a mortgage out on an investment property? Do we save up in total and try to pay cash for an investment property? And I know you're well versed in all of these different strategies. So what do you have to say for people who are contemplating this decision?
So that's a really good question. And I would imagine that most of the anxiety comes from the fact that you're looking at, if we get debt, we are taking on like an obligation or an anchor that can hold us down, and that can actually turn against us and it can hurt us, right? So the first thing I like to do is take it out of my head and put it into like paper or a spreadsheet. So rather than saying, well, do I want to borrow $90,000 because that's $90,000 of debt, I would put on a spreadsheet like debt, $90,000, monthly payment, $700. And then right next to it, I would put the asset, $120,000, income, $1,100. So instead of seeing debt, what you're actually seeing is a trade-off. If I'm willing to pay $700, I earn the right to collect $1,100. That changes it psychologically in your mind. It doesn't look bad, right? The next thing I do is I always plan for worst case scenarios. So let's say we lose our tenant for 6 months. We have to pay that $700 a month, right? Now take your personal budget and look at that and say, do we make $700 a month extra that could cover that in a worst case scenario? Right? One of the reasons that I feel like I can be so aggressive buying properties is that I know if everything went to hell and I just lost my tenants and I wasn't selling houses and I couldn't make money, I could go back to waiting tables and I could make $700 a month pretty easily to cover that until I got out of it. That is not a huge problem for me to solve. Right? Most of us, if we cut back on Starbucks and we worked a little more hours and we got a side hustle, I mean, you could go Uber driving, you could cut grass. You're not going to lose that house if that's what your risk is, right? It's different than when you're like, hey, I'm going to go buy a $7 million apartment complex and I'm going to take on $22,000 of debt or something like that, right? So that's probably what I would do is, one, I'd put it on paper. So instead of looking at it like just risk, you're actually seeing if I'm willing to take on this obligation, then I earn the right to collect this money. And you've made yourself $30,000. You have an asset worth $120 and you've got debt of $90, but that debt of $90 actually made you $30,000. And that should keep going up as the house appreciates over time and the loan gets paid down. that 90 becomes 85, becomes 80, 75. Well, the house becomes 120, 125, 130, 145, and that big spread starts to happen. And then what happens is that you see that spread grow, you naturally start to think, how do I get more of these? That's why we all get addicted to it.
That's right.
Because yes, we're looking at our balance sheet and we're like, holy cow, the risk becomes less and less while the rent goes up and the property goes up. And the risk I'm taking is offset by the fact that I can collect money. It's different than when you buy a stock. When you buy a stock, you just hope it goes up in value. When you buy Bitcoin, you hope it goes up in value. Real estate's the only thing I know that I don't have to hope it goes up in value. It could completely crash in value. As long as that cash flow is there, I'm okay.
So starting out, somebody that's new starting out, or even yourself per se, when you first started, was there a certain time frame that you waited before you ended up picking up that second, third, and then fourth property? And then the other question, is there a sweet spot of yours when using the BRRRR method that you usually like to stay around when looking for a property? Like you don't try to exceed X amount of dollars.
So the answer for, I bought my first one, and then about a year later, I bought the next one. And it wasn't anything strategic. My mom said, hey, there's a house down the street from mine. Do you want to look at it? I was like, okay. And I went and looked at it, and like, it was a foreclosure and the price looked good. And I'd already done it once before. So I was like, oh, I'll do it again. It was that simple. And then the third one, it was my grandma actually passed away, and I bought her house and then rented it out. And at that point, I'm like, oh, I guess this is what I do. I buy houses and rent them out. And I got a little more serious about it. As far as the sweet spot, what you're looking for is two things. Actually, three things, three criteria that I have. The first is what I told you. I want to be buying it for 75% of what it's worth if I take my rehab and my acquisition. The second is it needs to cash flow. And the third is I want it to be in a good neighborhood. I don't care how good the deal looks. If it's in a bad neighborhood and I'm going to have problem tenants, it's not worth doing. You're not buying an investment. You're buying a job at the point that you do that, right? So those numbers, like that sweet spot, the first thing I look for is I want to find a trash house that I can be buying for a lot less than what it's worth. That's probably the easiest one to notice, right? That as far as the cash flow goes, we have what's called the 1% rule. And that states that if you're buying a property and it will rent every month for 1% of the purchase price, it's likely going to cash flow. So if I'm like, okay, this house I could buy it, it's going to be worth $100,000 when I'm done. If it rents for 1,000 or around 1,000, it's going to cash flow. So the sweet spot would be areas where there's a lot of those 1% rule properties. If I'm looking for a rental, I won't even waste my time going after areas where the houses cost $200,000, but they only rent for 1,000 a month. I'm not even going to look there, right? If you're looking for a wife, you don't go to the strip club, you don't go to the bar. It doesn't make any sense. Like, could you find a wife at a strip club? I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure people may have done it, but like the odds are not in your favor if that's what your goal is, right? If your goal is to get in shape, then you shouldn't be spending your time like at McDonald's or whatever. So you look for those neighborhoods or those markets that have 1% rule houses. So that price to rent ratio is really important. If you're like, where should I invest? Really simple. Are the rents around $800 a month and the house is $80,000? $900 a month, $90,000. That's what you're looking for. Once you find that market, you look for the best deal in that market. How far below market value can I get this deal? And if you find those two things, then the last question is this in a problematic neighborhood? If you're going to be dealing with like prostitution and drug trafficking and stuff like that, your house is going to be used as a meth lab. Like, you want to avoid those neighborhoods because rental property really only makes sense when you have a pretty good tenant who pays consistently every month. The minute you start throwing in, oh, they trashed my house or I had to evict them, and you're doing that every single time, it just becomes a money pit.
That's good information. I want to back up when you say good neighborhood. I'm sure people are listening like, okay, what classifies a good neighborhood? Because usually we're from Chicago. So if you're looking for a property that's, let's just say 80,000, 70,000, most times, not all the time, it may be very difficult to get it in like a nice neighborhood or a good neighborhood, right? So what do you define as a good neighborhood? Is it the school system? Is it the crime is low? What's a good neighborhood? Such
a good question. The easy answer to that is it actually isn't my definition. It's my property manager's. You get a really good property manager and you're like, would you want to manage a house here? And if they say, hell no, I want nothing to do with it, then you don't buy it. Because they're doing all the heavy lifting of collecting the rent and dealing with the drama and having the tenants' excuses. And they know which areas draw which kind of tenant, right? And I've seen areas with high crime and low school scores, but this little pocket of it is full of like hardcore blue collar workers. Maybe they put two families in the same house to make ends meet, but they would rather die than miss a rent payment because they have too much pride. And they're great areas, right? I've also seen areas that look like they could be great, but they're not. right? They've got tenants in there that have been there for 12 years because they can't get kicked out, and the rents are half of what they should be. And it's like, it's a problematic thing. So if you find yourself a really good property manager, they can make that call. The other thing I'll say is, let's say that you're in this area of Chicago that I don't know, and $80,000 is a terrible neighborhood. Well, what if you could find a place for 160, but it was split into two and each one rented for 800? The principle is still there, right? You're still getting 1%. So if you're like, man, if I'm going to be at the 1% rule, I got to go into levels of this game that I'm not really willing to, then just look for a way to make that principle work in a different area. Oh, there's a duplex. Each side will rent out for 900. So I'm getting 1,800 a month, and it's listed for 200 grand. That's really close to 1% where I can make that work.
Yeah, that's good. And definitely in Chicago, we have pockets of quotes, if you would say, quote unquote, good neighborhoods within, probably surrounded, maybe not so good. So that's definitely good advice. How do you find a good property manager?
That's what I was going to say.
That does seem very valuable.
Because I think everybody or a lot of people know an agent or know somebody that knows an agent, know somebody that knows a contractor, but we're very you don't see very much advertising for property manager, and you don't necessarily know yourself a property manager. So how do you go about finding a good property manager?
I find mine through referrals. I find other investors or a really good agent who's like, most of my clients use this person. They're pretty good. Now, here's the thing you want to understand about property management. It is by far the worst part of owning real estate. Managing properties is the most labor intensive for the least amount of money. Okay. So people build those businesses for two reasons. It's usually not to make a lot of cash, because you're not going to make cash. You're going to be dealing with like headaches. I tell people it's like the lymph node of the real estate system. It has to collect all like the diseases, right? And figure out how to filter and process it. The first reason people do it is they're willing to put up with the headache because they get access to landlords who are going to sell their deals to the property manager first, or it's an extension of their real estate business and they can get listings out of it. So what they're saying is, I'm willing to deal with all the headache and not make very much money because I know when my landlord wants to sell, I'm going to get to sell his house. It's going to help my real estate business. Or I'm going to build my own portfolio, so I'm going to buy his property when he's done with it, and I'll manage it, and I get first access to a deal. That's not the property manager you probably want as an investor. The one you do want is the one who used the second model, which was, I owned a whole bunch of units myself. I put a system together for how to run it, and I realized I've already got the system. Why don't I just expand and take other people's and make a little bit of extra money while I'm at it, right? That's the best property manager you're going to find, because they're going to treat your rental like it's theirs, because the same people that are doing your work are who does their work. The same contracts they came up with, the same customer service that they have. It's all something that they based their portfolio on and just added you into it. So it's kind of tough to find that out. You got to ask them questions, but that's what you're looking for, is someone who owns a lot of properties themselves, and they're just tagging on other people into that business because they're going to run it a lot better.
Yeah, I think having property managers is so important. I often tell this story. My family, I come from a family, my parents, dipped their feet into real estate years ago. And at one time they had over 13 properties. And the goal was to, once the kids got older, I'm one of 5 children, we were all going to get a home, and I can't help but to think about the legacy that would have been left. But my parents got burnt out. They were doing it all on their own. They didn't have a property manager. My father got tired of people calling at 2 o'clock in the morning, saying the heat wasn't working and all this stuff, right? And so talk about that part of it. I really want you to harp on that, because I think the property manager, not only do they handle a lot of the different, ins and outs, but it can also keep you from getting burnt out and from wanting to get out of the market.
Amen, Ty. I mean, that goes for everything in life. Like I'm running a real estate team right now, and I'm doing really good as an agent, but I'm seeing I could not do this for another couple of years. I'm already getting burnt out of being addicted to my phone and having to deal with clients' drama and their emotions. You're just like a sponge soaking up everybody else's fear and negativity all day long, and then trying to give them back positivity. And I can do it for a short period of time, but I know I will burn out, right? So I'm a very big proponent of learn something, decide if you like it or if you don't. If you like it, keep doing it. If you don't, have someone else do it, because there's somebody out there who actually does like that stuff. There's agents out there that love being able to be there for someone and hold their hand and listen to their fears, but they hate having to make the big, tough business decisions. They don't like the stress of, oh my God, the deal's falling apart. What do I do? And that's actually kind of where I come alive. Ooh, I got to use my brain to figure this thing out. So what I would say is, anytime you find yourself drained, negative, avoiding something. Your goal shouldn't be to avoid it. Your goal should be to run right at it as hard as you can, to figure it out as quick as you can so that you can get somebody else doing it as soon as you can. So Brandon Turner, the co-host of the podcast that I do, and we have this thing where we ask ourselves, does this feel heavy or does this feel light? So one of the things, and that's how we know if we should be doing it. So I know, like, when I got to call a contractor and find out why the job isn't done yet, that doesn't really bother me, right? I almost like it when he gives me his problems and I'm like, well, why don't you try this instead, right? Brandon hates that. Brandon would rather like rip his own toenail off than have to have a talk with that contractor about why it's not being done, because he just doesn't like conflict. He doesn't like having to like be like straightforward, right? It's just not his style. He's very different. So that's heavy for him. He shouldn't be doing it because he'll put it off. He won't do a good job with it. He'll make excuses for it. He'll do whatever he can to subconsciously not deal with it, right? Now, there's other things like marketing. I don't really think like a marketer. I don't ask myself, well, how would people perceive this? I don't know what other people think. I just know how I think, right? So whenever I have a new book coming out or a thing we want to do, I go to Brandon and say, what should I call it? How should I label it? How should it look? And he can think of it real quick. That feels very light to Brandon, right? There's people out there who your heavy stuff is their light stuff. And if you can get good at looking for them and finding them and giving them the standard you want it done by, you'll never burn out, and then you'll find like real big success.
That's a mic drop right there.
Light or heavy? I'm gonna start saying that around the house. Is this light?
Is this light? Is this heavy?
There you go. Yeah. And you might find that each of you, like, I don't mind doing that, or oh, good, because I absolutely hate doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, David, I'm sure everybody's intrigued now, and everybody should definitely pick up this book because you broke it down excellently. So tell them how they can pick it up and how they can stay in touch with you.
So you can buy this book at BiggerPockets.com/BRRRR BRRRR book. Or you could get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's being sold in a lot of different places. I definitely think that if you're a beginning person, you should check it out because it's going to force you to do real estate the right way. And if you're an experienced person, you should check it out because you probably are leaving a lot on the table when it comes to like how efficiently you could be doing things or how quickly you could scale. And then if you want to get in touch with me, your very best bet is Instagram. I think I have like 500 unread text messages on my phone. It's very hard for me to get to all of that, but there's like 4 unread Instagram messages. So the people that messaged me there got the best shot. You could also check out our podcast, the BiggerPockets Real Estate Podcast. Subscribe to that. Check out Brandon and I. And then my blog is greenincome.com. I post all the podcasts I do, the articles I write. I write for Forbes now. I've been on CNN a couple times a year, so they can kind of follow the stuff that I do there. Or if they message me on the website, BiggerPockets.com.
What was the handle on Instagram?
David Greene 24. It's actually my handle on whatever you use, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. David Greene 24, and there's an E at the end of Green.
All right. We'll be sure to link it up in the show notes of this episode. David, this was a masterclass you just gave us, so we really appreciate you taking time to break all of this great information down for us today. Thank you
so much.
Thank you, guys. I had a great time.